Okay, so good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to our second public webinar. So this week we have obviously the events module release, which is excellent and one I've been looking forward to myself. And then we've also got some additional things. We're going to look at the Zapier, new Zapier app, public API, and a couple more things from this week's release as well. So without further ado, I will get stuck in. So let's go to the next slide. So I've sort of gone through some of these. So we've got the Zapier and public API integration. We've got the updates that we've had this week, which includes the events module. And then we'll take a sneak peek. So we'll go through some of the things that the team are going to be working on next. So it's more of the immediate future as well. All right, so without further ado, the events module. So the events module, this is the phase 1 release and includes calendar integrations, Google Maps integrations, and also ticketing to control attendance that can be free or paid. And we've also got various filters and searches and categories and links to e-commerce. And we also have a pre-installed set of layouts using our layout library that you can either use or edit or make your own. So we'll go through all of those and a bit more right now. So I'll back out of the slide before we move on to that. Okay, so over here, I have a test site and I'm just looking at site settings at the moment. And so I'm going to head over to the modules tab and we'll be able to see that the brand new events module is listed and I'm just going to install that. So one of the other things I'm going to check is that my design system module is up to date. Now I created this site yesterday, so it should be, and we can see that it is. So one of the reasons I want to do that is just to make sure that any new CSS that the team have used for the design system layouts is going to be installed and used there. So now that I've installed that, I can go and edit my site and we should see the left-hand menu. So this load will take slightly longer than normal because it's installing some of that. It's doing its updates. And we'll see on the left-hand side inside our modules menu, we have events, which is excellent. So I can come in and you'll see that it looks very similar to web apps. So that's because they are in effect the way they are structured in the database web apps, just like e-commerce and forms and things like that. So if I'll make a new item first. So if I call it event 1. So we can see we have similar fields to the web apps as well. So you've got your name field, slug, waiting, release date, expiry, etc., to show and hide the event from pages. And then we have event descriptions. So I'm just going to put in a short one for now because I'll come back to it. And you can also see we've got an event start date, end date, and be able to define a host. So this uses the authors module, which I'll show you a little bit later on. And then we get an option to select tickets as well that I'll come back to. So if I just save this, I will then come over to my page. And as this is a fresh site, I've got some of the pages that exist on starter site, but I don't yet have an events page. So what I'm going to do is just make one. There we go, select my template and we'll sort SEO and everything later. So all we need to do to output our new events is use Toolbox. It's just the same as you would for forms or web apps or secure zones, anything like that. So I'm going to come over to modules and list of modules. And in here, we can see that I now have the events module because I've installed it. And it will have some predefined layouts. So some of these are design system, and then you have the more basic, just default structure files. I'm going to go ahead and use the default system one there. And I'm just going to click insert. So this automatically generates the liquid for you. So you don't have to guess, you don't have to go and look it up in docs. It's all point and click. And now that I've saved this, I'll be able to preview the page and see that I've got the one event that I've just made and some generic right-hand side information as well. So these are the layouts that I was talking about from Layout Library. If I just quickly head over there, for those that don't know, We have layouts.siteglide.com, which is a free collection of Bootstrap 4 layouts. So the new module layouts also run off of this. So you can come in and add and choose any of these. And that's obviously tied to our Figma projects as well. So you can design sites using the same structure. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do at this point is just quickly switch over to one I made earlier, because I've taken some of the layouts and edited them just to show some of the ways we might set them up. So I've got a separate testing site over here, and I have an events page that I've populated with some events. Now, you can see that I've actually switched out some of the tiles in the bottom here. So I've included the host, for example, and I've also got the Zoom link in there. Now, I'm not going to click this because that is this Zoom link meeting, and I'm not quite sure what would happen. So we can pull in information like that I've actually stored in the location field. So if I head back to the events module on this other site, I can go into one of these. So let's go with, I think it's number 2. Okay, so we can see in here that I have added my description, which is one you guys will have seen as well. So if I view the event details, we get a full view of that, but I've truncated it on the list view. It's very simple sort of layout stuff there. And if I keep going down, I then have myself as a host. So I mentioned this earlier, we've got an authors module. So I'll have a quick look into that and show you how those two link up before we move on. So in authors here, you can see we've got 2 authors, which is also the same on our right-hand side. So we've called them event hosts, but you could call them whatever you'd like there. You also might not want to use people. So it might be a company that's hosting an event rather than an individual person. So if I come in here, you can see again, this looks very similar to web apps, and it has basic information across there, and we can add in social links and things like that as well, which I've not done for now. And what we're doing here is effectively data sourcing into the events module. So when I go into an event, you can see that both of these options, these 2 people, are displayed here. So it's calling in the authors module. Now, some of you might already know that the authors module is used with blog as well. So any authors that you already have and are already writing content on your site will automatically be found here and can be selected. Alrighty, let's have a quick look. Yep. Okay, so I'll do the different views first. So I'll come back to this in a moment when we start looking at the e-commerce and how that integrates. But I've also set up a couple of other pages. So if I come here, and you'll see, because this is just a small testing site, I've only got a few called events. And if I go into the calendar view first and take a quick look in here, you can see that, again, we're using a very small amount of liquid to call out all of the data that I'm going to show you in a moment. And again, we've used Toolbox to output that, so I've not had to guess or remember it. And I've got the page set up already, but let's go and have a preview. And we can see that there's a JavaScript and CSS calendar that's pre-built, and any events with an event date are listed on here. Now, because this is JavaScript and CSS driven and it's not connected to any external sources, you can do whatever you'd like in here. So there's obviously some design system styling here, but you can edit and control all of this. Alrighty, so the other view we've got is, as you might have guessed by now, the map view. So again, we're just using a small amount of liquid that's generated from Toolbox to display our events in the map. So if I come over to here, no, not on that one. So there we go. This is my event map view, and it's populating any events that I've added a location to. And I can click on some of these to see some of the details and click through to an item as well. So I could go over here and I can view more information on that event. Now, if I show you the events module in the back end again, let's come in here. I've set some up with locations and some without. But if I go into the location tab just in here, you can see that we have an address field and a long lat as well. But we've also got a search field. So you can add in here any postcode, PO box, or reasonably legible address and click search, and you'll be able to find a new one. So I'm just going to create a new event. and I'll put a new location in, and we'll see it updating automatically as well. So if I do location event 4, and I'll not bother with the description or anything just yet. I'll go straight into location, and I have an address over here. There we go. So obviously you can use any address you'd like. I've hit search, and what it's doing is using Google API integration to go and find a list of possible addresses. Now, obviously I've narrowed it down quite a lot here, but if I was to just put a general PO box in, it would come up with a multiple for you to select from. So I click here, and you can see it's pre-populated the longitude and latitude, and I will hit save. All right, so if I come back to my maps page and refresh, we can now see that the 4th event that I've just added in has been added to our map. And it's obviously pinpointing on the correct longitude and latitude as well. So the other thing to note here is I've not entered an API key, as you can see. So it thinks it's just for development purposes. So what we'll do is, I won't add one, but I'll show you. So in the back end, we can come over to integrations, and you'll see a tab now for Google, and this is where you can put your project API key in, and this will enable them to work with your live domain for your client, etc. Okay, so let me go back to events. What's next? Okay, so let's show you, so we'll show you, I've linked one of these with e-commerce, and that is to generate tickets. So if I remember correctly, it's number 1. So I'll have a quick look at the front end first. There we go, number 1. So if I scroll down a bit, now obviously these layouts can be changed, and you could add this to the list view if you preferred, but you can see I've got an unformatted and terrible CSS product. So this is for our tickets, and I've added a price just to show that, that can be done, but you could also have them as free. So I'm going to click into that, and it's going to effectively jump into the e-commerce side of things and allow somebody to purchase tickets to go to your event. So if I come into the event here, okay, so you can see we've got a tickets field, and I've selected the tickets product that you could see on the front end. Now, this is automatically calling in all products in your e-commerce store. So it gives you a lot of flexibility when you're trying to find, trying to assign tickets to different events, or if you'd like to change or update an event ticket. So I'll go into e-commerce and show you the product in that side. Yes, that's okay. All right, so I've done a search, so you can't see the rest of the products, but if I just do that, we can go in here. Now you can see that I'm using all of the normal fields that products do, so it gives you quite a lot of flexibility here. And it also means you could use products in other contexts, such as a landing page offer, things like that. So they don't only have to be attached to an event item. So if I scroll down a bit, you'll see the image that I've put in there, and a product code and all the normal things there, but we also have inventory control over here. So I set a quantity of 100, which effectively means there are only 100 tickets available. And if there were 100 that were purchased, that quantity would go down, but I can force it and just pretend that everybody's sold out my amazing event. And if I come and refresh on the page, not quite, there we go. We'll see now that that goes to sold out. So that's an option. I can either have it completely disappear, or I can just let people know that it's sold out, depending on what kind of marketing style we're going with for the site. Okay, so obviously, because it's in e-commerce, you're going to be using all of the normal payment gateways and methods that way to collect money and funds. And you would use the autoresponders through checkout to generate the ticket IDs, which most people will use a case ID for, because it's unique every time and specific to the person that's generated it. Okay, so I think we are going to come on to some of the filtering here. So if I go back to list view, I sort of skirted around it earlier. So you can see we've got a right-hand side, and we've got various archives based on dates of the event. and also some searching as well. So this is using the new advanced search that you'll see in web apps and other such areas. So I could do a search here for today onwards and see if any events come up. Now it should just be the one, if I remember rightly. There we go, which is today's event. So you can see that it's generating that using the URL and various liquid filters. And I can also view any past events, and that'll show me obviously not the one that's today and everything else. And the same for future events as well. And then it will only show me the one because that's what we have. So the same can be said for event hosts as well. Now, the other thing to mention here is that I've got categories. So we're using categories as tags for the events to help group them, a bit like you would with blog modules or web apps. And if I click on one of these, now I've categorized 2 of the events, the SiteGlide webinars, to this tag. Now we can see that this generates, it adds the category ID to the URL to help filter or search the event items. Now you can actually do the same on both of the other views as well. So if I come over to the calendar view, I could say, okay, only give me the ones that are categorized to the SiteGlide category. And now it'll only display those. And I think we had the one last month as well as there. So equally, if I was to come to our maps integration, I would hit enter there. And now the reason that none of them are showing on this view, it's correct. It's because I've set the location to be a webinar rather than a long and location. So this is actually accurate. Okay, let me have a quick look at my notes. Yeah, so that obviously means that depending on how you'd like to do it, you don't have to then maintain and manage multiple map views and calendar views and so on. So you can have one with its single set of CSS and JavaScript, and you can then filter them depending on marketing campaigns you're doing or anything else. Alrighty. So I think that is a quick whistle-stop tour around the events module. So let me have a quick look at chat before we move on. Just make sure that all the questions have been answered.
We do have a few questions, Martin, but I don't know whether you prefer to answer them at the end. There's a few demos we're hoping you could quickly do to try and answer some of them.
Okay, yeah, let me have a quick look now then, before we move on to Zapier.
I think the first one was about using external JS tools like Mapbox.
That's a good question. Probably one for Dean to answer.
Dean to give an answer, yeah.
Really?
So the address field is available in Liquid, so yeah, if you can pass that data to Mapbox.
Yeah, I'll quickly show you the layouts then. So this is more for the developers than anything, but if I come into here, we can see that the events module has been installed just as it would for web apps or any of the other modules that we've got in here for layouts. So we can see that we've got a little bit like blog, we've sort of segmented each of the elements on the page to allow for maximum customization. So you might want to customize just the list view, but leave the right-hand side alone, no matter what the layout's doing. So let's have a quick look. We've got the map in here. We've got, I think it's, there we go, the item view. So you can see we're building a JSON array in here, and we've got all the various elements that are being pushed through to the map. So yes, in theory, you could then send that to wherever you like. And you can see in the wrapper that we've got some of the JavaScript stuff that pulls in the Google Maps keys and so on. So yes, you could use another if you like.
Another one was about whether the map would auto-center depending on how many items you had. So if you only had 2 in the States, would it just show those?
Yes, it was. So I'll disable one of the ones in the UK, shall we? Let's go, I can't remember. And I'll click on it to find out more about this information. So there we go, we've got event 1. So if I come back up. Okay, so I'm just going to disable it. I could just remove the location, but I will disable it instead. Almost. Where's it gone? There we go. Okay, so now if I refresh, it'll get the new data and you'll see it's refocused to be stateside only. And if you haven't got event pins that are spread out, it'll obviously zoom in more. So the more you add that across a global scale, it'll stretch out. So hopefully that covers the question. Sign up but not pay for a particular event. Yes, I think you will need e-commerce because that's how the events are managed. That's how the event tickets are managed. However, what I can do is I can come into e-commerce and I don't have to set up a payment gateway and all of that sort of thing. I can come in here and just set the price as 0. So instead of 1, I can set it to nothing. And then they technically have to submit a purchase. Now, that's important because obviously you need to generate a ticket ID and validate that they have actually purchased a ticket. Whereas if you weren't so worried about it, then you wouldn't need tickets. You could just do a blanket invitation. So for example, when we add this to our website, I probably won't be doing tickets on ours. I won't be doing tickets on ours. We'll just be using the Zoom links instead. So it depends which method you want to go down. And that also adds it as orders to each user in the CRM. So that can become useful when you're tracking it between, well, for your marketing purposes across MailChimp or anywhere else, which I'll come on to in a bit with our Zapier integration. Cool. Any other questions?
I think next up was adding your own properties to the module, and Matt answered that with being able to add custom field sets. That'll be available across all of modules soon. So yes, you'd be able to add your own fields.
Absolutely. And if I scroll back up, so yeah, also coming soon, I don't know if anyone's mentioned it, doesn't look like it. So also coming soon for the events module is auto generation of the calendar files. So being able to click on one and say add to my calendar, for example. I believe it's almost built there. And we're also going to be looking at BC import for those of you who are waiting to import from BC. So for now, if we come into events, we of course have CSV import export. So that behaves exactly like web apps does. So you can just use the CSV columns to import from BC now if you'd like. But we're going to be taking a look and seeing what kind of data we get out of BC and how we'll be able to import that and make it a bit easier for bigger sites. You may well not want to carry across a lot of the event history with all of the sort of location information. It depends on the client really. So.
Quick one, Martin. Stephen was asking where you would actually put the Zoom link. Was that using the location?
Yes, that's right. So you can do a few things. So when they add custom field sets, so for example, for our events on our website, I would like to add an image field. Now I could do that using Liquid at the moment, just saying, depending on what the type of event is or what the category is, I could display a certain image, but I'd like a custom slot. So if I go into, I think it's number 2. I can't remember which one I've done it on. So if I come over to the location tab, okay, let's try number 2. Or number 1, sorry. Okay, I can't remember which one it was, but effectively, yeah, oh, there you go, event address. So I've just put the Zoom link in there, and then what I've done is use that Liquid tag on my layout. So I've customized it to have this new tile. So I've got Zoom and then dash, and then the Liquid parentheses for that. So what I also might do is add some Liquid in to say, so for example, like these webinars that we're doing right now, we have a Zoom link for everybody to come and join. And then afterwards, we tend to put them on YouTube and publicize that link. So what I could do is add some Liquid in and say, if location address contains YouTube, then switch it. And I could have, instead of join us, view the recording. So there's a few things I can do that way.
Well, that's a good example of where custom field sets will be really powerful. The fact that you can add unlimited fields specific to a certain type of module or use case.
Yeah, so that means you'll be able to, yeah, with the custom field sets, you'll be able to customize it to anything you'd like. And we're still able to build the core module and add new features because the default fields are protected. So if I go in and edit the module structure. So you can see it looks very similar to web apps, and we have all the normal fields, but we have a few more default fields that you can't then remove or edit because they're used in our various views by the system. So when custom field sets are added, you'll get an option down here at the bottom, a little bit like forms, to add in blocks of your own fields using whatever field type you like. Okay, so have I missed a question?
Another, Martin. There's one about how you could do a sort of coming soon event or to be announced.
Yeah, sure. So you could do that based on date. So you could do a filter to say, you know, get anything with a timestamp of more than today, because how detailed should we go? Let's go into code editor quickly.
I think a quick way of doing it was just not setting a start and end date and just saying that it's to be announced.
Yeah, you could do that, or yeah, that's an option, but then you have to manually go in and do it. So what you could do is automate it based on date. So if you got the event start date, we're filtering it to make it look good. So where we're formatting it here. So if I was to come in and remove that filtering, it creates a Unix timestamp. Oops, there we go. Okay, so now if I refresh, you can see the Unix timestamp. Now, obviously, if it's in the future, that number is going to be bigger. So I can say, if the number is bigger, get the first item and display it here. So we could then have a up next event area. So hopefully that answers the question. There's a few different ways of doing it, but that would be the most automatic way of doing it.
While you're in code editor, Martin, could you just quickly show getting the field names out into a layout?
Yeah, sure.
Bob's asking for.
Okay, yeah. So if I'll remove that. So much like web apps, so when you import a bunch of web apps from BC and they're created in our system along with their categories and everything else, you then don't have to try and guess what the liquid is, and it's the same in the events module. So when I come into this layout, I can just use this drop down over here, and I can get any of the fields that are listed in the event module or a web app. So depending on which layout I'm in, it will change the fields that are available to me. So I could output the tickets, for example, which is the data source for products, as we looked at earlier, and things like that. Does that answer the question?
Hopefully. There's one more quite interesting use case, actually, which I'll just sort of read out from the chat. Alexandra was asking whether if an attendee has a profile, can the profile show all of the events they have attended and future events that they've signed up to attend? And I'm glad Matt answered it, because I'm not sure I could. But when someone buys a ticket, it's saved as an order. So then you can show those orders on a page once they're logged in into a secure zone, and then use Liquid to determine whether they're sort of future or past. So that's just one use case, but you could do all sorts of things with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the Liquid to determine future or past is similar to what I outlined just a minute ago on one of the other questions. So, excellent. Alrighty. Any other questions before we move on? We'll get cracking with Zapier and other bits and pieces. Nope. Okay.
Good.
Right. So if I dive back into my slide deck. Oh, and I should mention documentation and so on. I'll come to it at the end, but documentation and so on are on the way. So some of them have been released already with some examples on code for your developers, and we'll add more to that in the coming days as well. So onwards. So Zapier and public API. So you might have remembered at our last public webinar, we had public API and Zapier integrations in our top 10. And I'm happy to say we have now released it. Our app has been accepted by the Zapier team. So we now have new endpoints for our public API, which I'll show you in a moment. And those endpoints are also available in the Zapier app, which is going to allow you to connect to thousands of other applications. So if I quickly dive back out, I will come into public API. So we'll send out the link afterwards, or the guys can stick it in chat. But this is our public API page, and you can see we've got a list of endpoints that are currently available. So you would authorize per site, So you connect to a specific site and then do something with the information. So you can see we've added cases and users for the CRM. So this primarily so that you can obviously connect the users that are engaging with your site to any other marketing platform you're using, such as MailChimp for email lists, or ActiveCampaign, or Salesforce, or any one of thousands. So if I flip over to the application here, again, we'll stick the link in chat in a bit, or we'll send out the link with the recording. You can also just search for our app in Zapier now, and this will come up. So we've got some suggested applications to connect to here with various different integrations. And we have, so some of our advisory board have already been testing this and have been setting up Zaps. So if any of you also start setting up Zaps and think we should offer them as a sort of default, a template Zap for other users, just get in touch and send us the share link, and we'll take a look and add them in. I think we want to be getting to about 30, so we'll be adding some, and hopefully all of you guys will as well. So you can see that one of the use cases, I believe it's already being used by one of the partners and their clients, is pushing data to spreadsheets, because the client manages various elements of their business just in a Google spreadsheet. So being able to automatically add more data to that is just one use case without all of the marketing. Yeah, so Luke's put the public API on there. I'll put this one in. There we go. So one other thing to note on Zapier front is, due to the coronavirus efforts going on around the world at the moment, they're offering free versions of their paid pricing plans. So if I go in here, just for anyone who might not have heard of this before or looked into it before, you can have a completely free account that will check for an update every 15 minutes. So it will look for a change in any of the endpoints that you've connected it to. So perhaps a new case submission on a form, or a new user being added to your CRM. And then that Zap will run and do whatever you've asked it to. Now, they have paid plans to both speed up that time and also increase the amount of usage you can use per month. So the first thing to mention here is that you can have multiple Zaps on one plan. So you don't need to pay for Zapier for every client you have. You could group your clients into one account and spread that cost to you across your clients, just as an option. So yes, Zapier are offering, if you fit into one of these categories, free versions of some of their paid plans to help alleviate things and help SMEs get online quicker and connect while working remotely. So that's worth noting. Okay, any questions on that before I move on to this week's release? No? Good stuff. So we've shared the links and we'll put them out in the recordings as well. We're sort of excited to see what everybody comes up with, because each client has a slightly different use case and uses the information slightly differently. So let me come back. Okay, so if we just go straight into it. So obviously this week we've got the events module. But also released this week are e-commerce discount codes, so that you can obviously discount the e-commerce product pricing in your site, which has been a popular request. We've also got e-commerce live cart updating that's been released this week. Then we have web app and module items bulk delete. So when you're in a list of web app or module items, you can just clear them out all in one. And also form cases. So when a case is submitted, if the form has a file field, there will be a link automatically included when you use the liquid tag, so that your site owners don't have to try and hunt around in the file manager to find it. They can just click straight from the email, which is excellent stuff. So that's just some of the highlights. There are more. If you'd like to check out the full release, you can go to our docs. I'll back out and show you quickly. So we've got the full release here. If you go to our docs and scroll right the way to the bottom, you'll see a whole section for releases, and you'll see this week's release in there that Matt's put together. And you can also get links to that from the forum and things like that. Okay. So now I just wanted to share a couple of the things that were coming up soon. So in the next week or two, as opposed to the next couple of months. Oh, I missed one. So the first one is media downloads module. So I believe, Matt will correct me if I'm wrong, but that'll be out next week, towards the end of next week, which is excellent. So by next webinar, we'll have to show everybody that. Then we have web app front-end editing. Now, this is a really big one for building online portals, members areas, networks, forums, things like that. And it's also quite a good one for moving clients online, particularly at the moment, without them having to set up 5 different tools and try and connect things together. And then we have CRM segments. So in light of the Zapier and API work that we've been doing, we're going to be shifting email marketing lists to become CRM segments. So they're going to behave in quite a similar way, but the segments are actually going to be more generic, so that you can essentially form lists and push those to any of the marketing tools that your client might use, be it MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, whatever, which is excellent. And then finally, courses, which came up first. So some of you might have seen it in our documentation. We've got a first course in place, which is just getting started. So that is, it's a course aimed at people who have not necessarily ever used VC before and haven't used web apps before and so on. So it's a fairly new kind of user. So it may not be useful to all of you, but we're going to keep going with that. So I'll quickly show you in here. So we've got getting started section and whoops, courses, course 1. So in here we've got videos for each step as well, and information on fields and so on, so that you can get a basic site up and running nice and quickly. Now we're going to be extending that, so we're going to be adding a second course that the guys are working on at the moment for e-commerce. So how you're able to quickly, in a matter of hours, generate an e-commerce website, customize it and put it live. And we're also going to be then working on a third course after next week's release with the front end editing. So creating a membership area and portal area online. So we'll be focusing on those 2 courses to help, particularly to help SMEs move online in their current time of need if they've had to close a physical place of work. So I don't know, it may well be the same for many of you, but businesses locally in the UK here have been doing this as well. So to varying degrees of technical scope, they've been moving their physical products just to an order form online so that they can still serve their customers and stay in business. So we thought we'd focus on that and help in that area. So I think, yeah, that wraps us up. So did anybody have any questions on anything that we've had a look at? No, so some of them have been answered, which is good. Okie dokie. Right, well, yeah, excellent. Yeah, lots of praise for the dev team there. Yeah, they've been extremely busy. So yeah, if nobody has any other questions, we'll wrap things up for this week then. Luke, did you have anything else in particular you'd like to go through just before we all sort of sign off?
I don't think so. I think you've covered it all really. So no, I think that was pretty much everything.
Excellent, good stuff. Alrighty, well, if that's the case, then we will say goodbye to everyone.
I did think of one thing.
Yeah, oh, go on then.
Just to remind people, I don't know if you want to quickly show the welcome page on in the admin, and how people can find things like the forum and the roadmap and the docs.
Sure. So whenever anyone logs in to Portal without going to a specific link, you'll be directed to the welcome page, or you can just click on the welcome page up here. And we've got an area for resources. So most importantly, we've got roadmap and forum, which uses SSO to authorize you in. So if you're talking to any of our team, or you're clicking on links from our release notes and things like that, and you're getting access issues, come here first and click on this, and it will take you through and authorize you into those. So in our roadmap, you can go to feature requests and look at this quarter to see everything the team are working on. So you'll see things like the events module in there that will close off in due course. And you can also all add your votes to the most important thing that's, that you need for your migrations and your clients. And that will go through directly to our development team, as you can see. And it helps us prioritize what it is we're going to work on next. And yeah, same for forum. So if you have any questions about migrations or tips, or how you approach different bits of code, things like that, all of those can go in here, because obviously others in the community will have also, well, they're quite likely to have come up against similar problems in the past and be able to help. Alrighty. For events, separate module, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap, you can go to your site settings to install the brand new events module, and just make sure when you do that design system's up to date on your site, if you're going to use the design system layouts. That's the other thing. Okay, well, thanks for joining, everyone. Stay safe, and we will see you all next time.